The two factions of the Nigerian labor movement have decided to once again speak with one voice, closing ranks for the first time in more than 6 years. The groups, the Nigeria Labour Congress and the United Labour Congress, went their separate ways in the wake of a heavily compromised election in Port Harcourt in 2015. The fault line that emerged as a result of that situation has since then affected the ability of the labor movement from effectively discharging its obligations towards the large majority of Nigerian workers. For the significance of this new resolve to work together, we are now being joined by Issa Aremu, a trade union activist and labor leader who is Vice President, IndustriALL Union, and member, National Institute of Policy and Strategic Studies. In the course of the conversation, we will try to find out his thoughts about other burning national matters, including the newly commissioned Ajaokuta Cardinal Kano gas pipeline project, former Emir of Kano Mohammed Sanusi on NNPC finances, and the upcoming governorship election in Edo State, among other issues. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the morning show. Comrade, good morning. Hello, well, Comrade Issa Aremu. Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, you had my introduction.
Very
I started
well.
with the newly found rapprochement between the NLC and the ULC. How significant is that, and what is the guarantee that what happened resulting in the, if you like, the dismemberment of the Nigeria Labour Congress will not happen again in the future?
Well, I think from your background report, Dr. Ruben, and by the way, let me to you say good morning to Adesua.
Good morning.
And also your other partner in daily conversation. I would like to just compliment your opening remark to say that it's quite significant that Nigeria Labour Congress is back to one strong, indivisible movement. Precisely because I'm involved, you know very well. I was a candidate at that election, and we took place in Abuja, not Port Harcourt. 2015 delegate conference, our 11 delegate conference, you know, I was involved, and of course, there are a few imperfections which led to crisis. I don't want us to go to the past because the devil is in the detail. But what is important today is that we are the split. Some unions, you know, largely the National Union of Electricity Workers Union, NOPENG, National Union of Petroleum and Gas Unions, and a couple of unions, Nigerian Union of Railwaymen, about 6 others went to form another center known as ULC, United Labour Congress. Of course, it wasn't formally registered, but they declared their intention, and they had the capacity to stay for almost about 2-3 years outside the NSC. But there have been a series of discussions for us to come together. But what I want to say briefly here to your question on unity is that it's significant that Labour is back, NSC is back, and this is not the first time. You know, historically, there have been challenges of unity within the Labour movement. For obvious reasons, don't forget that the Labour movement is an independent organization. The only power comrades have is power of persuasion, of conviction, not coercion. And with that sense of voluntarism, unions see the need to have their own expressions where their members' interests can be serviced. But we also recognize over the years that our class opponent, if you want to put it that way, I'm talking of the men and women of means of production, employers who own capital, they are united in one organization. I mean, there's only one Nigeria Employers Consultative Association, there's only one manufacturer association. So it doesn't make sense for the working people to display their energy when we can have one formidable labor movement. So I want to say that it's very significant. And after working for trade union movement for close to 30 years, I want to say one basic principle of trade union is unity. The second one, or possibly you don't even need to rank them, another one very important is democracy, which means participation. Members should be able to choose their leaders. For unity is very, very important. You introduced me, I'm the Vice President of IndustriALL Union, made up of 50 million workers all over the world. I mean, you can see that we are united with common cause. That what brought all of us together, from Europe, from America, from Africa, from Asia. So unity is significant. So the return of strong NSC, united NSC, I think is not just good news for the workers. It's also good for the country as a whole. Don't forget that labor creates wealth, and only united labor can actually complement enterprise, owners of enterprises, and even national government to ensure productivity.
Indeed, it is said that the house divided against itself cannot stand. But Mr. Aremu, does this rapprochement extend to other divisions within the union affiliates, such as ASU and CONWA, the Congress of University Academics?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure. First, ASU is a member of Nigeria Labour Congress. And I'm very sure that they will be able to take a cue also from the need for united front, which the NSC led by Comrade Ayuba Waba, and of course the ODLC led by Comrade Joe Ajero, the steps they have taken to come together. So I strongly believe that the same spirit should go to all the other sectors. I mean, don't forget that until recently, I used to be in textile union, and there's only one union that unionizes textile workers throughout the country, which is National Union of Textile, Garment, and Tailoring Workers of Nigeria. The same thing in banking. You have NUBIFE, the National Union of Banks and Financial Employees. Petroleum sector, the same thing. So it's better that we have a united front. And enlightened employers also know that it's in their best interest to have one labor center. You may use divide and rule to turn workers against themselves, but when the day they have a common cause, then that employer is in trouble because they will deploy the same forces against them. But I think everybody benefits more from unity. Even as for nation building, we also need a united, strong Nigeria. I listened to your newspaper review about zoning, about equity, about so this, about the need to have a cohesive federal republic. I think the same thing for the trade union movement. So at this why I strongly believe that the same spirit will go down in all other industrial unions that are affiliated to Nigeria Labour Congress.
All right, thank you so much, sir, for that. I just want to say this, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm going to make some assumptions. The first assumption I'm going to make is that this goes for nothing. That probably there's a deal somewhere that once Joe Ajero is back, maybe looking forward, Joe Ajero will be our next NLC president. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. And secondly, is it that the NLC is stronger now because the grouse has always been the NLC is not what it used to be. It can't call a strike and get a united force. And we've seen that too many times. And that's why these days it's not the days of Oshomole any longer that they calls a strike and the country shuts down. But now you can see the fact that there's no cohesive. Correct me on those two assumptions if I am wrong, sir.
Well, I'm not sure whether we want to talk in terms of deals. You know, that sounds quite, I mean, deals are not, deal is not part of the lexicon in the labor movement. But I think we had the memorandum of understanding, which was advertised. You know, it's a public knowledge that the two groups have come together. Not only that, we've tried to harmonize the structure. In any case, that's what we were looking for in 2015. Don't forget that I was also involved. In fact, that board Congress, I was already declared unopposed as deputy president of NSC. But when we got to the conference, they reopened nomination again, which led to chaos. You know, again, that's in the past. But when we're engaging in series of discussions with many veterans, and I want to salute them for the energies they put into being the first president of Nigeria Labour Congress, Comrade Issa Aremu, second one, Alichi Roma, a couple of other leaders came to mediate, you know, and the understanding is that we need to find a way to accommodate our comrades. In any case, there are enough responsibilities for all of us to carry out. Don't forget that this is a vast country. We are talking of NSC that organizes close to 8 million workers throughout the whole country with the potential of almost 60 million members to be organized. And then we also have NSC made up of close to 40 athletes, different sectors of the you know, public, private sectors. So there are enough responsibility. We need to service our members, protect jobs, fight against hiring and firing, ensure not just minimum wage, living wages for our members. So we thought there are enough responsibilities. But a quick response to your question, we had the memorandum of understanding to harmonize the structure for now. And I think Comrade Jero has returned now as deputy president of the NSC. Don't forget that I used to be deputy president also before we went for that conference, just like I used to be the vice president before we ran for that election. So to that extent, there's an understanding that we harmonize. Of course, the next delegate conference is still far away, but you know that in the trade union movement, it is the working people from their unions, the affiliate that will determine who we run again. But I also want to say here that we've learned from our lessons that we must allow for equity, we must allow for inclusion. We don't have that kind of zoning kind of deal that politicians have, but there are some basic understanding. First, you need to, whoever will lead the working people must be prepared to serve them, regardless of where you come from, which sectors of the union. You must be accepted to all the industrial unions. But we also have certain understanding that because we have our own diversities, don't forget that we have public sector unions, we have private sector unions. We also try to do some, you know, informal balancing when we are doing our slating. And I've no doubt in my mind that we will arrive there much more later. If you check the past, maybe that would be my last comment on that. The first president of NSC, he came from public sector. That's Alhaji Hassan Sumanu. You know, he came from the old Amalgamated Workers Union. You know, a very formidable veteran. He's still on his feet. He later became the general secretary of Organization of African Trade Union Unity. The second one is Alichi Roma. He also came from public sector. In fact, from Medical and Health Workers Union, where the current president of NSC also comes from. I mean, so you can see, it's not so much of a deal, but based on the dynamics that is thrown up. Then the third one is, so rest in peace, Pastor Bafiao, who was the general secretary of Railway Workers Union, also came from, you want to say now, public sector, because Railway was also public sector. Comrade Adams is the only first one to come from private sector. I mean, he was my boss, general secretary of Textile Workers Union, and he came as a private sector candidate. He ran as general secretary of Textile Union to become the NSC president. Of course, the fourth one, also Union of Teachers, which you can say is also public sector. Then now we have Comrade Ayuba, also from Medical and Health Workers Union, which is also public sector. So I want to say that as we move on, we must also have more inclusions to make sure that it's more equitable. People have a sense of belonging. And it's not just at the level of, you know, even in terms of gender. I mean, women must be more included. We need more youth. And in our respective unions, we have done a lot of affirmative action to allow for more female participation. But I think we better talk of memorandum of understanding, which has been, you know, advertised, it's made public, and I'm happy that all the structures are coming together now. We are harmonizing, not just at the national level, but at the state level, so that the two centers can really have all their comrades on board to deliver on the need to serve Nigerian workers.
Comrade, there was a subject we tried to explore yesterday, and I would like you to comment on it, and that's the objection of the Nigerian Labour Congress to the stamp duty that the Federal Inland Revenue Service says, you know, people must pay on tenancy agreements and also for obtaining certificates of occupancy. Certificates of occupancy, C of O, and some other category of agreements. Now, the NLC has kicked that this is an attempt to punish poor Nigerians in the season of COVID-19. But the truth of the matter is that this is backed by law. There is an existing Stamp Duties Act, and these charges are graduated. Now, what is really the objection of the NLC to the enforcement of the law?
Yeah, well, you can also see this is one dividend of a United Labour Congress. You agree with me that we are not talking with one voice. I think my comrade brother, I always forget your name. You asked the question of the lack of unity of purpose anytime we take collective action in recent time. I agree with you. Don't forget that when we had the increase in price of petroleum products, immediately President Buhari came in, petroleum price was increased to 143 naira. There was a response from NSC, but it wasn't as cohesive because of that time divisions within our rank. Yes, petroleum workers went different ways together with NUE. But I want to say that our common voice of stamp duty now shows the benefit of united force. But Dr. Ruben, my quick take on that is that whether backed by law or not, it's significant that it's backed up by law. But what the NSC is saying that within the context of the COVID-19, we're having a pandemic in which the government had engineered stimulus, packages for recovery. There have been a lot of relief measures, both for big enterprises, medium enterprises, the need to retain jobs, the need to moderate the inflation in the country. You don't really run down policies that will further, worsen the purchasing power of Nigerians. And I think that's what the NSC says. We are not questioning the legality of it at all, but we are talking of the context of the need for recovery. So if you want to put in more incomes into the hands of Nigeria to stimulate effective demand so that we can turn the economy around, which has been locked down due to the pandemic, I think you need to have policies that will not further, impose unnecessary hardship on the people and constrain their purchasing power. And this is what the NSC is saying. And I think anything that you also want to carry out, I want to end on this note on this, is that we need more policy dialogue, not policy dictatorship, not the way you just announce policies, without engaging the citizens, and I think the NSC intervention is not just for the NSC, as you can see. For certificate of occupancy, this is even for possibly non-workers. But we are just talking of the overall interest of the economy, that in the condition of crisis that we have at hand, I think you need to be measured in some of the policies that you carry out so that you don't compound the crisis.
Well, from all indications, it doesn't seem as if the Federal Inland Revenue Service is going to rescind that decision. What are the demands of labor? What would be the next step? And what is the priority of the United Labour at a time like this?
Well, I think the priority of United Labour at a time like this is clear that first we need to preserve lives under a pandemic. We need to also make sure that we defend livelihood, as the case may be. So it's not one or the other. And we are saying that inland revenue should not take more measures that is going to compound the crisis of livelihood. And I think the position of the NSC, it has been expressed openly, and I think we do more engagement to make sure we call for reversal of this policy. And of course, if it is not done, then we have a series of measures that we can take. All the options are open, and I think the organs of Nigeria Labour Congress will discuss that.
A lot of people will say that they have not really seen the effect of the Nigeria Labour Congress in the lives of workers. A lot of people have been laid off, during the pandemic, even, as we're still going in the pandemic. There's been a lot of discrimination of workers. There was a story of somebody I read that said he was sacked while he was treating COVID-19, because while he got COVID-19, he was told to step aside, and the next thing he saw was his sack letter. Plus all the series of troubles we have with the workforce and poverty in the land. Now that you have a united front, are we going to be seeing you out there on the streets to right the wrongs? I mean, because we want to feel the, I'm sorry I'm using that very colloquial language, in quote, feel the NLC once again. Meaning, when I say feel, I mean to be able to see the impacts, what they are doing again.
Yeah, I mean, I have no doubt in my mind that that's the beauty of a united labor movement. But even let me also put it this way. I think you should also, we should be clear that well before this unity, which we have just won, there has not been dull moment in terms of what the industrial unions are doing to defend their members. First, you will agree with me, you must have followed very well. The electricity workers union have been very loud, you know, to make sure that we don't, you don't carry out power projects, you know, that we not deliver on the power which we have promised. The electricity workers, you know, also several times, don't forget the engagement they did with the governor of Rivers State, that's Governor Wike. You remember the crisis when some of the petroleum workers, you know, were apprehended and they were locked up, you know, under the COVID crisis. I think Labour came forcefully to defend the members there. I also know what Nigeria Labour Congress have done to constitute situation room, you know, labor room, what we call situation labor room, in which a lot of cases have been made for frontline workers, medical and health workers, some of them who are already victims of COVID. You know, unions have risen up to make sure that they are well protected. They are given the personal protective equipment. I also know that the National Wages Commission, you know, had to come out, think outside the box to approve special allowances, you know, for the workers, especially frontline workers under this condition. So there hasn't been that dull moment. But I agree with you that with United Labour now, NSC, I think there's no doubt in my mind that we will concentrate all the energies and make sure that we confront the employers who, having benefited from the relief from government, you know, don't forget CBN has taken a lot of measures to support medium and private enterprises. You know, they shouldn't now carry the burden against the workers through unnecessary, you know, job losses when it's the time for job retention. You know, don't also forget before the COVID, we are on the issue of minimum wage, which we fought for. Some employers have complied, some haven't complied. This is not the time to concentrate energy and do what we are supposed to do, which is to stand up and defend the interests of our members.
Well, Comrade Aremu, we have just about a minute to go. We'd like to just take your comments on what's going on in Edo State and the conflict within the APC and the role being played by your friend, Comrade Adams Oshiomhole. Quickly.
Well, I'm not sure whether you have been fair to me on this platform on that, but if you say my dear friend, Comrade Adams Oshiomhole, I'm very sure it's also your friend. I think what is clear in Edo, not just Edo, but Ondo is also there. October elections, that of Edo is coming up September 19. I think my take is that we need to refocus the politics to be on issues. We need to minimize the unnecessary tension. And I think increasingly, I want to, I've said so several times, Ruben, that we have done very well in democratic process quantitatively, but we need quality control of this democratic process. The soundbite I'm picking from Edo and even Ondo too is not about the issues. The soundbite is more about personalization. And I think for me in Edo, it's more painful because I know when we campaigned in 2006 and of course 2008, when Comrade was running for elections, there were issues one by one.
Thank you. Thank you, Comrade. Thank you very much, Comrade Issa Aremu.